It was almost dark when I heard the taxi turn in at the top of the lane, and I knew, before I even reached the door, that it was my daughter come home at last. I had been watching for those headlights all afternoon. I had made the little back bedroom ready, the one that looks out over the water, and I had put a jar of sea lavender on the sill, and I had walked to the window and back so many times that the cat gave up following me and went to sleep by the stove. And then there it was, the soft yellow sweep of light along the hedge, the crunch of tires on the wet shingle path, the engine going quiet. I opened the door, and the cold salt air came in around me, and I saw her climb out into the last of the light, my Ellie, my only girl, thinner than I remembered, and so tired around the eyes. She stood there a moment with her bag in her hand, looking up at the little cottage as though she wasn't quite sure it was real. And then she looked at me, standing in the warm doorway with the lamplight behind me, and something in her face simply came undone. Not tears, not quite, just a letting go, the way you let your breath out when you have been holding it far longer than you knew. "Hello, Mum," she said very softly. "I'm home." And I opened my arms, and my grown daughter walked into them the way she used to when she was small. And over her shoulder, I could hear the sea turning over on the shingle in the dark, slow and steady, the way it has done here every night for longer than any of us have been alive. But all of that can wait until the morning, because right now, none of it needs anything from you. Not the sea, not the lane, not the long journey home. Right now, there is only you and the soft weight of your blanket and the slow, easy rise and fall of your own breathing. So let yourself sink a little deeper into the pillow. Let your shoulders come down away from your ears. Let your jaw soften and your hands grow heavy and warm against the sheets. I am going to tell you the whole of it slowly, from the beginning, in a voice as soft as the tide. There is nothing for you to do but listen and drift, and let the day slip quietly away behind you. Let me begin. My name doesn't matter very much for a story like this one. I am 68 years old, and 3 years ago, I came to live in a little white cottage at the very edge of the land, where the road runs out, and the fields give way to dunes, and the dunes give way to the wide gray sea. The cottage is called Sea Thrift, after the small pink flowers that grow all along the cliff path, the hardy little blooms that hold fast in the wind and don't mind the salt. My husband and I had dreamed of a place like this for 40 years, a place to grow old beside the water. He did not live to see it, but I came anyway, because I felt that some part of the dream still deserved to be kept, and because I have never been afraid of my own company. I keep bees in 2 white hives at the bottom of the garden, I walk on the beach every morning, whatever the weather. I have learned the names of the seabirds and the moods of the tide, and which of the fishermen will wave back if you wave first. It is a small life and a quiet one, and it suits me down to the ground. But I will tell you the truth, because it is late, and there is only the two of us here. I had been lonely for my daughter, not in a way that ached, in a way that simply waited, patient and quiet, the way the shore waits for the tide to come back in. Because Ellie had gone to the city, you see, years ago, the way the young ones do. She had a good job there, a clever, busy job that filled her days and most of her nights, and a small flat high up above a noisy street, and a life that spun faster and faster the longer it went on. We spoke on the telephone on Sundays. She always sounded bright. She always sounded rushed. And then this past spring, the Sunday calls began to change. Her voice grew thinner. The brightness in it started to sound like something she was holding up with both hands. She was tired, she said. Just tired. Everyone was tired. It was nothing. But a mother hears the thing beneath the words. And one evening she went quiet on the line, and then she said, in a very small voice, "Mom, I don't think I can keep doing this." And I said, as gently as I have ever said anything, "Then come home. Come to the sea. Stay as long as you like. Stay for the whole summer if you want to." And there was a long silence, and then I heard her begin, very softly, to cry. Now take a slow breath with me. In through the nose, gently, and let it go soft and long, like a sigh at the end of a long, long day. There is no hurry in this story. We have all the time in the world. We are simply going to follow it the way you might follow a set of footprints along a beach, in no rush at all to see where they lead. She slept for 2 days, near enough, that first week. I let her. I did not wake her for meals, or for walks, or for anything at all. I simply left the little back bedroom door ajar, and the window open a crack so the sea air could get in. And every so often, I looked in on her the way I used to when she was a baby, just to watch the blanket rise and fall. When she did come down, blinking and rumpled, I did not ask her anything. I have learned that the tired ones do not want questions. They want tea. They want a warm kitchen and something on the stove, and someone who is glad to see them without needing them to explain why they came. So I made her tea, and I buttered thick slices of bread, and I put a spoon of my own honey beside her plate, and I let her sit in the window seat with the cat on her lap and say nothing at all, for as long as she liked, while the gulls wheeled over the water outside. And slowly, over those first few days, I watched the city begin to loosen its grip on her. I watched her shoulders come down. I watched her stop reaching for the phone that was no longer ringing. I watched her, for the first time in years, begin to simply be still. Let your eyes close now, if they haven't already. There is nothing more for you to see tonight. Only my voice and the quiet and the slow unspooling of the story, one soft word after another. The first morning she came walking with me on the beach. The tide was far out, and the whole wide bay lay open and gleaming under a pale, washed sky. We didn't talk much. We walked along the tide line where the sand is firm, and she picked up a razor shell and turned it over in her fingers. And a little way further on she found a piece of sea glass, soft green and worn smooth, and she held it up to the light and said, "I'd forgotten these were even real." I told her how the sea makes them, how it takes something sharp and broken, a bit of an old bottle thrown away and forgotten, and it turns it over and over for years and years, patient beyond all reason, until every sharp edge is gone, and what's left is this, smooth and soft and lovelier than it ever was before. She looked at the little green stone in her palm for a long moment, and then she closed her fingers around it and put it in her coat pocket, and we walked on. But I saw her face, and I knew she had heard something in it that was more than just the sea glass. That became our habit over the weeks that followed. The morning walk, whatever the weather. Some days the sea was flat and silver and barely breathing. Some days the wind came off the water hard enough to lean against, and we came home with our cheeks stinging and our hair wild, and we laughed about it over the kettle. She began to sleep better. She began to eat. The color came back into her, slowly, the way it comes back into the sky before the sun is properly up. Breathe in now, slow and soft, and out, letting your whole body grow heavier against the bed, warm and safe and held. Feel how there is nothing to carry here, nothing to fix, nothing to answer, nowhere to be. Just the next quiet word and the next, and the sound of a far-off sea. In the evenings, we fell into another habit, the gentlest one of all. We would sit together by the window with our tea as the light went down over the water, and slowly, without either of us deciding it, we began to talk. Not about big things, not at first. She would tell me some small thing about her week or her work or a girl she had known years ago, and I would tell her some small thing about the bees or the fishermen or her father. And the talk would wander on, easy and unhurried, the way it can only wander when there is nowhere else you need to be. And in among all the small things, the bigger ones began to surface, the way shells work their way up through the sand. She told me she had been unhappy for a long time, longer than she had let herself know. That the busy life had stopped feeling like living and started feeling like running. That she had been so afraid of stopping, because if she stopped, she would have to feel how tired she was. I did not try to fix any of it. I have learned that you cannot fix a person like a leaking tap. You can only sit beside them in the lamplight and keep their tea warm and let them know by your presence that they are not, and never were, as alone as they feared. One evening she said, I always thought I'd have it all worked out by now. And I don't. I don't have any of it worked out. And I reached over and took her hand, and I said, my darling, I am 68 years old, and I don't have it worked out either. Nobody does. We are all just walking along the tide line, picking up the pretty shells and putting down the heavy stones. She laughed at that, a real laugh, the first proper one I had heard from her in years. And then she leaned her head on my shoulder, my grown girl, and we watched the last light leave the sea together. And neither of us said anything at all, because nothing at all needed saying. There was one evening, I remember, when a storm came in off the water. The wind got up in the afternoon, and by nightfall it was hurling the rain against the little windows, and the sea was a great dark roar out in the black beyond the garden. In the city, she told me, a night like that would have set her nerves on edge. But here it was different. Here we lit the fire and drew the old armchairs close, and I found the thick blanket that had been her grandmother's, and we sat wrapped up in the warm gold light while the whole wild world blew itself out beyond the glass. She fell asleep there, in the end, curled in the chair with the firelight on her face, the way she used to fall asleep in the back of the car on the long drives home when she was small. I did not wake her. I sat and watched the fire settle into embers and listened to the rain and thought that there is no sound in all the world so safe as a storm you are warm and dry inside of, with someone you love asleep and easy in the chair beside you. In the morning, the storm had passed, the way they always do, and the beach was scattered with new treasures the sea had thrown up in the night. And she went out early and gathered them in the pockets of her coat, laughing like a child on a birthday. Let yourself drift now. You don't need to follow every word. Let them wash over you like a warm tide coming in, covering the sand, smoothing everything soft. The summer went on like that, gently, the way the best summers do. She started helping me with the bees, standing very still and brave in the veil while I lifted the frames, learning the low, warm hum of them. She was frightened of them at first, and then, one still golden afternoon, she wasn't any more, and she stood in the middle of that soft, humming cloud with her eyes shining, and whispered that she had never felt anything so alive. She started cooking again, which she had always loved and had somehow given up. And the little kitchen filled up in the evenings with the smell of things baking, bread and apples and cinnamon, until the whole cottage smelled the way I remembered our old home smelling she was a girl. She planted a row of sea thrift of her own along the front wall, on her knees in the salt wind, patting the earth down with her bare hands. And every morning after she would go and check it, the way you check on something you have decided, at last, to love. And I watched my daughter come back to herself, the way you watch the beach come back after a storm. Slowly, quietly, one calm tide at a time, until one morning you look and the shore is smooth and whole again, and you can hardly remember it any other way. She stayed the whole season in the end, and a good while longer. And when at last she began to talk about going back, it was not the old going back, not the running kind. She had found a way to work from here, at least for a time, at the small desk in the back bedroom that looks out over the water. She said the city could have her days, some of them, but the sea would have her mornings and her evenings and her Sundays. She said she wasn't ready to leave the place that had given her back to herself. And I will tell you the truth, because it is the tenderest part, and I have saved it for when you are good and drowsy. On the night she told me she was staying, after she had gone up to bed, I sat alone by the window a while longer in the dark, listening to the sea. And I thought of all the years I had waited, patient as the shore. And I understood that the waiting had not been wasted, not one moment of it. That some loves simply take the long way home, the way the tide goes all the way out before it turns and comes, without fail, all the way back in. Stay with me here in the warm. You are almost at the end now, and the end is the softest part of all. These days, the mornings begin the same way, and I could not tell you how much that gladdens me. I hear her come down before the sun is properly up. I hear the kettle, and then the two of us walk out along the sea thrift and down onto the wide gray beach, side by side, saying not very much, watching the light come up pink and gold over the water while the gulls call and the tide breathes in and out. She has her green piece of sea glass on the windowsill of her room beside the jar of lavender. She keeps the bees now, near enough on her own. And in the evenings, we still sit by the window with our tea, mother and daughter, two women who took a long time and a whole wide sea to find their way properly back to one another, and who are in no hurry now to be anywhere else. That is the whole of it. That is the story of the season my daughter came home to the little cottage by the sea, and how the two of us, so slowly and so gently, found each other again. So let it go now, all of it. The long journey, the tired years, the busy city far away. Let it dissolve like a footprint in the wet sand when the soft tide slides over it and smooths it all away. You have nothing to decide tonight. No train to catch, no work to finish, no one you need to be. There is only the warmth of your bed and the soft dark and the slow tide of your own breathing drawing you gently out. Breathe in slow and easy, and out slower still. Let the next breath be softer than the last, and the one after softer still. You are safe. You are warm. You are exactly where you are meant to be. Rest now, sleep now. I will keep the kettle warm and the lamp lit in the window, and the sea turning quietly on the shingle, and I will be here telling gentle stories whenever you need somewhere soft to go. Good night.